Welcome, everyone, to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast. This is episode 122, and I am joined again by my lovely friend, Angela Brown, who you may remember from episode 37, which we were just saying is, oh my gosh, I can't even believe I don't even know, I didn't look it up, but it must be a couple of years ago. It doesn't feel like that long since we spoke, but it is. And so if you haven't caught episode 37, go back and listen to it because we're talking all about mindset and minerals and obviously thyroid, and you'll hear Ange's story in that episode. So do go back and have a listen to that. But for this episode, we're going to be talking all about fueling a healthy thyroid lifestyle, because one of the things I've noticed about Ange on social media and my interactions with her is she's the real deal. She walks her talk. None of us are perfect, and I'm not trying to set you up, Ange, that you live this sort of perfect thyroid friendly lifestyle, but I think you seem to do a pretty good job. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity to get you back to have a chat about lifestyle and how do we actually implement all these things that we talk about. And I know many of my listeners, you hear a fair bit about my lifestyle over time, but there's lots of different ways to live a thyroid friendly lifestyle, and I certainly don't profess to have the way or the best way. And so I thought it'd be great to bring you back. But before we get chatting with Ange, I want to just remind you, not of her story, but just of the quality guests that I have on this show. So Ange is a holistic health coach from St. Louis. She's now a board certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. She was just telling me she's done that extra board certification training since we did our last interview, which means another exam. So I think kudos to you. She's a licensed physical therapist and a personal trainer, and we want to get into talking about some physical, exercises and things in this too. So one of the things Ange does is she specializes in advanced testing and thyroid healing for women. And we did talk in the last episode about all that hair mineral analysis and those sorts of testing. But like pretty much all of my guests, or certainly most, she has her own thyroid story, recovered from hypothyroidism. And from memory, Ange, you don't have Hashimoto's, do you? It's just the hypothyroidism.
I do not know. I had antibodies come up this one little time where they came up and then I got them to go away again. So I was on my way to getting diagnosed and I was like, I'm not doing that. I do not. But I still have hypothyroidism.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So that, and I know we talked about that in the last episode. So if you want to hear those distinctions, we talk a bit from memory. We talk quite a bit about, the distinction between Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism. So, but Ange is a health coach. She's using her experience to help educate other women with thyroid conditions. She's got a great program called the Sexy Thyroid Solution to help women stop suffering. I'm looking forward to talking to you again, Ange, and we'll check in again at the end with how people can connect with you and work with you and all of that. But welcome back.
Well, thank you again for having me. I'm excited to be here. And you're right, 37 episode doesn't seem like it's been that long, but I guess it has been. It's been a little while, but I'm so excited to be here. And thank you again for having me.
Yeah, that's a pleasure. Well, we've actually tried to make this conversation happen. This is the third time lucky because the first time earlier in the year, Charlie broke his arm and he ended up in hospital. And then the second time you had a son who was sick in hospital. And so a couple of days ago, I emailed you and I said, let's bubble wrap our kids. We've got to make this happen. So
right.
So this is obviously the right time. Winter for us, summer for you, time to kind of have a bit of a refresh on our thyroid-friendly lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
You bet.
I think that's good. Yeah. So Ange, you and I probably similarly aged, similarly diagnosed, like both at around that sort of 22. We've kind of lived this for a long time. In a general sense, how do you maintain like a thyroid friendly lifestyle? Like, is it an effort for you, or is it just part of life now, or what's
It's easier now. I will say that. Like initially, especially, getting diagnosed at the age of 22. I'm 47 now, but getting diagnosed at the age of 22, it had its challenges because, I'm in my early 20s and, I knew I could tell that I had to make some lifestyle changes. But at that time it was like, not really something that was like on the top of the list of things that I really wanted to do. But then I started quickly noticing that all these little steps that I took, all these little changes that I made, um, became more ingrained in me and became more just like routine, where it was not so much work. Now, I would
Mhm.
say probably at least, even over the last 10 years, where it's just normal for me. Like I
Yeah.
almost feel like if I'm not doing my everyday normal thing, to keep my thyroid in check, I feel off. Like it doesn't feel like me anymore. I feel like I'm way out of routine. So now
Mm.
it's just more natural for me. But I won't deny
Yeah.
it. Like in the beginning, it didn't feel, very, I'll say natural for me. I felt like it was a lot of effort and a lot of work. Um, but I knew in the end that it would become just like any routine, that I knew that, any change in, lifestyle, whatever, that I knew that it would eventually become routine for me. That I wouldn't feel like it was that much work. Now it's just like an everyday, just a normal thing for me, where I don't really have to think about it. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, it definitely was. It was work. I won't
Yeah.
deny that. I felt like it was work,
Yeah.
but now I feel like it's just more of a natural thing. And like I said, if I'm not doing my normal everyday stuff, then I feel like I am
Mm.
out of routine, and I feel like, you know, I easily could have thyroid symptoms come up again and things like that if I don't do it.
Mm.
So it makes it easier, when you start noticing changes and you start feeling better from lifestyle changes that you've made. When you start noticing the changes and feeling better, it is easier to stick to it.
Yeah.
Nothing's worse than like when you make changes and you're like, nothing's working. I don't feel better. I feel terrible still. Um, it's not going to be very easy to stick to. It's really easy and I
No.
say stick to, like it becomes normal for you, versus like you feel like it's so much work. When you can tell it changes, when you can feel better with it, it's just an easier thing, that it's
Yeah.
like now it's just my everyday natural thing now. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. And so how long do you think it would have taken you to get to that point? Like, do you feel like it was years in the making? Yeah, has it changed over time?
So I would say, like I mentioned, getting diagnosed in my early 20s, I wasn't
Mm.
I definitely had a lot of moments of being stubborn, I'll say, where I was like, nah, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do that. That's not necessary.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I also, you know, I didn't have a lot of information. We didn't have as much that we could
There
look up
wasn't
on the
much around
internet.
back then.
No, we
Yeah.
didn't have
There
resources
there
like we
wasn't
do
the internet.
now. No,
The
we didn't
internet
have
didn't even exist.
no, we
Well,
didn't
yeah.
have the internet,
Yeah.
like we could look things up. We didn't have books that, there's a lot more books that have
Yeah.
come out since then. And so we didn't have a lot of
Yeah.
resources. So that was obviously a big challenge, was just
Mm.
learning all this stuff. And as the years went on, I started, getting, more access to books, and obviously the internet, and some of these, thyroid doctors and things like that, and more holistic, holistic lifestyle and holistic world. And that's when I was like, okay, I think there is something to be said for this. I need to start
Yeah.
trying this out. So yeah, and, had I had, I always say, had I had all the resources that I do now back then, I easily felt
Mm.
like I could have made more changes quicker, and change some of those lifestyle things and things like that, and been able to get into that routine much faster, because it literally took me
Yeah.
like 15 years before I even found like functional
Mm.
medicine, because we didn't have functional medicine here where I live. You didn't like, never heard of it back then.
Yeah.
So, you know, I always, wish that I did. Do I wish I had those resources back then? Yeah, absolutely. But I
Mm.
also feel like every step that I took and all the things, everything, the way that it happened for me was like perfect timing and perfect the way that it did happen. Because I did learn a lot along the way, and I've been through some of the really, really lows and the really, really bad points, that now it's like when I have a, client that I'm working with that is in that same spot, I can at least relate to them and be like, I've been there. I know how this feels. It's not fun, but we're going to get through
Yeah.
this. And at least there's, like I
Yeah.
said, there's a lot more resources and things now than I just didn't have anything back then. So I feel like,
Mm.
yeah, it was a longer journey than I would care to admit to, getting into all the things, but we just didn't have much access to things, and now we do. And it's like, take advantage. And that's why I always tell my clients and women who reach out to me, I'm like, take advantage of the things that we have now, because I didn't have that, back then.
Yeah.
Having this for 25 years now, I didn't have that. I'm like, so take advantage of what we have now, because it's a really, really much more complex picture than just here's your thyroid meds, take that and come back in a year. There's a lot more to it. And so that's why I'm like, yeah, this is so
Yeah.
nice that there's more resources now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when I was diagnosed, I didn't even think about a lifestyle.
Uh-uh.
Didn't even cross my mind. It was just, I was take the pill. That's all you
Take your
can
pill
do. And
and come back in a year. I mean, that's literally what I was just told. Take your pill, come back. But
yeah,
thinking about like dietary things, exercise, toxins, like all the things, we just didn't have access to like that kind of information. And I sure as heck wasn't thinking about that in my 20s. I was just taking my
that's
thyroid
right.
meds.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I mean,
Hmm.
I did see a naturopath just in a health food store, probably in my mid-20s, and he was the first person that talked to me about, I mean, I remember no sugar, no dairy,
Hmm.
probably no gluten, and I'm thinking, and I tried it for a little bit, but I think I just was like, what? Like, who
What are
are
you
you? I
talking
thought I just
about?
wanted some
Right.
supplements. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
Right.
I can't get my head around this. This is way too hard.
Yeah.
Um, and I did it for a bit, but probably didn't quite know I didn't understand why. And I
Why?
think when you understand
Hmm.
why make these changes, it actually
Right.
helps so much. And
Yeah.
that's where the added resources come, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
the books, it's the podcasts,
Right.
it's the,
Right.
it's the social media accounts you follow. It's that there's those
Right.
little bits of access to context and understanding that that's why, okay, this isn't just about ruining my life. This is about,
Right.
okay, and this is
Right.
why. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so I think
And I
exactly
think
what you
that's why
say. I
it's
mean, it
been
took,
easier for me to get into the routine with it, is because I'm understanding the why, and I'm very
yeah.
analytical. I mean, that's how I always was in
Mm,
school, and I want to know, like, okay, but you're telling me to do this, but I want to know why I'm doing this. And so that,
mm,
when I started understanding it more, it made it so much easier that
yeah.
I could implement these things, and I understood why I was implementing them, even if I didn't feel immediate
Mm,
changes. That was the thing. Sometimes I didn't feel immediate
yeah.
changes, but I'm like, okay, but this is why I'm doing this. And I'm going to stick to this because I know in the end, this is going to help me. I just may not feel it immediately. And that's the hard part,
Yeah.
especially like, for example, someone going gluten free. A lot of people tell me I went gluten free and I didn't feel anything. I'm like, how long did you do it? 3 weeks. That's not enough. So it's like you have to be patient. Is that easy? No. But when you understand why, it makes it easier to do these like lifestyle things, like you said, or you feel
Mm,
like your life is
yeah.
over because you've got to change all the things. But when you understand why and you notice the changes eventually, it goes a long way.
Yeah. So what would you say now is sort of a typical, when you say you feel worse if you don't do your
Hmm.
normal lifestyle, your normal
Hmm.
day in things. Walk us through, like,
Yeah.
what are those normal things for
Yeah.
you now?
So, like when I first wake up in the morning, I mean, I used to be, like most of us, grab your phone and look at your phone immediately and see what I missed. And I don't do that anymore. I'm not on my phone immediately.
Mm,
I usually am waiting at least an hour, sometimes a couple hours. Um, but
mm,
I'm always waking up and I'm always doing some type of like either meditation or tapping. I love tapping. I'm really hooked on tapping lately.
mhm,
Breath work or something like that. I'm always doing that, and maybe some journaling, things like that. So I'm doing a lot of like self-care before I even step my foot out of the bed. I'm doing something like that
okay.
immediately. And that
Mm,
I
mhm,
always feel like and sometimes I have more time. There's some days where I have 20 minutes, and there's other days where I'm like, I have 5 minutes. Maybe I slept in a little bit. I have 5 minutes. I'm still going to do something. So it just kind of starts my day off in I always say some sort of positivity. But I'm starting my day
mm,
off into some sort of um, mindset or positivity, something that's like basically self care for me. It's all about me. And I'm like, I want to start my day off like that. So I'm always doing something like that immediately. Um, and then typically I am usually getting a glass of water and taking drinking some type of water. Maybe I'm having like and I've put this on my stories before too, or on Instagram. Um, like I'll make like a little cocktail, like an adrenal cocktail, some type of
mhm,
you know get me going sort of little cocktail or something like that. I maybe drink a little bit of that. Sometimes people do
So
like,
what would be in that? Like, is that your sort of orange, what sort
yeah,
of,
so I
what
make
would
my
be in
own
that?
version. Like I don't use orange juice. I'm not a fan of orange juice, personal preference. So I'm usually using
Mm.
like coconut water and um, I'll put some collagen in there and some sea salt, splash of lemon juice or lime juice for some vitamin C.
Uh-huh.
So I'm usually making some like little cocktail like that. No orange
Yeah.
juice for
Yeah.
whatever reason. I was turned off by everything taste anything orange when I was
Yeah,
pregnant with
I've never
my.
really done the adrenal cocktail thing, but
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure it's orange juice and something, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. The
Yeah.
base is usually orange juice, but when I was pregnant with my son, who's now 19, by the way, couldn't do anything orange. It turned me off, and I still can't have it. So, yeah. So I make
Yeah.
my own little
Yeah.
cocktail version. So
And
I
and
usually
Ange, are
starting my
you
day off
on
with that.
thyroid? Sorry,
Mhm.
are you on thyroid medication
Yes.
still?
Yeah, I
And
am.
so when do
Yeah.
you take that in this
So
morning routine? Like,
I'm usually. It depends because a lot of times I wake up like one time in the middle of the night where I have to go pee. So
hmm
it's usually like 3, 4 a.m. By then, I take it. I
So
usually take it then, and I can go back to sleep.
okay,
I
yeah.
do
So
that a
then you
lot.
can go.
hmm
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So then I can get up,
Yeah.
go about my day. Have my little
Yeah.
adrenal
You're not having
cocktail.
to take it,
Uh-huh.
wait for an hour or two, and
Yeah,
then do something. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So I'm
hmm
usually doing that, and then I do some type of movement. So sometimes it's going straight to the gym, where I'm doing some type of weight resistance, some type of movement. Sometimes it depends on the day. Some days it's like today I didn't go to the gym. I just did a really long walk. It was really nice here in the morning. So I have a German Shepherd who needs walking all the time. So I took him for a really long walk. So I'm always starting my day off with some type of movement, whatever that looks like. And
And do you
it's
have a
either.
routine with that,
Mhm.
like a program or
Mhm.
is it?
Yeah, yeah, I
Do you know what
actually
I mean?
do.
Like do you walk 3 days a week? And yeah, what's your, how does that play out
So
over a week or a?
I do a walk almost every single day. Just again,
Mhm.
my dog needs to have his walk time. So I'm usually doing some type of walk every single day. Uh, 5 days a week, I'm going to the gym for my workout in the morning. And that's usually weight resistance, some type of weight training. 2 days, I'm doing no weight resistance. I'm taking the day completely off from the gym and I'm just doing a really long walk. After I
Mhm.
do my weight resistance training, though, I usually come back home, I have my breakfast, and then I'm usually taking my dog for, it might just be a short walk, maybe, 20 minutes or
Yeah.
so. He has bad hips, so I have to be careful with
Mhm.
how long I take him. Um, but I'm usually doing some type of, that's usually kind of my cool down, actually. I just a very slow, lazy walk with him. And then on my
Okay.
other 2 days, I make them, they may be like closer to like a 45-minute walk, depending on, how he's doing in the weather and stuff
So the
like that.
wind down walks are more like a stroll, or are they still a power
Literally,
walk, or yeah,
no,
a
no, it's
stroll?
literally,
Yeah,
it's a
they're a slow
stroll.
walk. But
It's
the other
slow.
days where you're just going for a walk,
Mhm.
that's got a bit more,
Yeah, I have a
Yeah.
little more pep in my step on those.
Yeah.
Again, depending on
And they're
how he's
longer.
doing.
Sounds like
Yeah,
longer
yeah,
walks as well.
yeah, yeah. So I kind of keep that pretty consistent. Where I'm taking 2 days
Mhm.
off where I'm not going to the gym at all, and that's just longer walk
Okay.
days. Um,
Yeah. And
and I've
when
been doing
and
that for
when
a
you're
while,
going,
and it's.
sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, you're fine.
I
You're
keep
fine.
interrupting. I've got lots of questions for you,
Yeah.
but this is how we'll kind of pull out all the info.
Uh huh.
So when you're going to the gym, I mean, I know
hmm
you are a personal trainer. You've been doing this for
hmm
years, but you know, uh, do you just do you have a program that you're
Yep.
working
I
through,
do.
or
Yeah.
yeah? So
Yeah.
talk us through that,
Yeah. Yeah. I do.
or your approach, or yeah.
I'm, generally I'll do a program maybe like 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and then I'll change it and then I mix it up, so that I'm not
hmm
getting used to like doing the same thing over and over. But I usually split it up into body parts just because I am going to the gym 5 days, so I don't do full body every
Yep.
single day. So, for example,
Yep.
right now I'm in a routine where Mondays is all leg day, which is brutal, by the way, but it's all leg day. Tuesday I'm doing all upper body, so it's back, shoulders, arms. And
hmm
then Wednesday is my walk day. Thursday, I'm doing a little bit of a little bit of shoulders, some more shoulders, and core. And then I usually will do some type of, I call it like an interval. So it's um, a lower body workout, but it's more like, what am I doing right now? like we have at the gym I go to, they have like battle ropes and a sled that you can push and a big long like turf area where I can do like walk-in lunges and things like that for a long distance. So
Okay.
I maybe
Yeah,
do
yeah.
that for like 15, 20 minutes where it's like heart rate up, heart rate down sort of thing. Um,
Mhm.
and then Fridays is back again and a little
Mhm.
bit more of lower body. Usually I'm doing like glute focused on that day. And
Yeah.
then Saturday I'm doing arms and shoulders again. And that workout
Mhm.
usually with my husband, who is a personal trainer, and it's not an easy
Oh
workout.
gosh. Gosh, you got
Yeah,
no
yeah,
escape, have you?
yeah. I got no escape exactly. So and then Sunday's my day off. Sunday I don't do. Again, it's just a walk. That's it. So that's
Yeah.
kind of the routine I'm
Yeah.
in right now. And then again, like I said,
Hmm.
I do that for like 8, 12 weeks, and then split up body parts again and mix it up and change and I
Yeah.
like right now I have it set like the exact exercises that I'm doing in that program, and then I'll mix it up again. But that's just easy for me
Yeah.
versus just
Yeah.
walking into the gym and being like, what am I doing today? I don't know what I'm doing today. Like I have to have things laid out or I'm not
Yeah.
going to do it.
Yeah, I'm much better. I'm not in a great routine at the moment. I've got to say, I've found since the last 6 months, going back to work 3 days a week, every day
Hmm.
is different. Like every morning is
Yeah.
different. I was in a really good routine. I haven't thrown it all out the door, but I'm not in a great. I'm still kind of struggling to find that
Yeah.
routine
Yeah.
or what works on what days. And I definitely am a routine person. I work
Yeah.
well to routine. We've got a gym in our home, so I don't have that excuse. Like I can, and I'll
Yeah.
go in even if I just go and do what I call my back warm up exercises because I've
Yeah.
had lots of issues with my back, and I find if I do nothing like apart from just walking around,
Hmm.
my back starts to play up. So
You can
even if I
tell.
just do my back
Yep.
back warm up exercises, that's better than nothing.
Hmm.
But yeah, when I've got on Mondays I'm doing this, and for a
Hmm.
while I was doing I've I think you probably know of Emily Kybird,
Yeah.
and Thyroid Strong. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so she's been on my podcast a couple of times, and I've
Yeah.
done her program, and I love it. It's all
Yeah.
kettlebell program. It's very
Her
kind of
program is
laid out.
killer.
You can do the.
Hmm.
It's really good. Like you can
Hmm.
do the exercises alongside
Right.
her, like maybe I just need to get back into that. But when I was in that routine, it was really good. I think for a time you might have shared on social media, like here's some um
Oh, workout
I
routine.
think it was an
Yeah.
arm workout. It was like,
Yeah.
and I was like, so I've got that written up on my wall in my
Hmm.
gym as well. So, um,
Yeah.
but I think, at the moment I'm a bit ad hoc. I'm a little bit out of like, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that. Oh, that's enough. I'll just,
Yeah.
but having
Yeah.
a really clear plan,
Yeah. It makes
yeah,
it easier. I mean, I
definitely
know
is
for me,
helpful.
it's so much easier because I know it's easy for me to just walk into the gym or whatever, or not go at all if I
Yeah.
don't have something written
Mm,
up for me. I know that's one that helps a lot, and I do that with a lot with my clients too. I'm like, okay, this is what you're going to do. We're going to do this week, and you're going to go here and do
yeah.
that. Um, you know, I
Yeah.
don't care what day of the week you're doing it, but just get this done. And so
Yeah.
when it's
That's
laid
good. In
out,
the end, we
sometimes it's
just like to
easier.
be told.
Yeah,
Just
yeah. I
tell us
mean,
what to
it's
do. Yeah.
easier. It's even for me. I have to have it like laid out, or it's not going to happen. It won't get done.
Mm. Yeah. So do you write out your own? I mean, obviously you're a personal trainer, your husband's a
Hmm.
personal trainer, you're writing out your own program. So
Hmm. Yeah.
you've got it all clear. Yeah. Do
Hmm.
you use an app or you just have it in your head or what do you do?
I just use the notes app on my phone. I have an iPhone and I just use the notes app and I literally have
Yep.
Monday and it's like written out. I mean, for my
Yeah.
clients, I use a spreadsheet thing. I have a whole program that I use in spreadsheet thing for them.
Hmm.
That'll have it
Yeah.
like laid out, like the reps and sets and all that stuff. I have it all in there, like that. But yeah, I gotta have it written out. Otherwise it's just not gonna happen. Yeah.
It's too easy. I mean, we all need I mean, what this is saying to me is that we all need accountability
Hmm.
and we can hold ourselves accountable, but we've still got to have some tools to help hold us
Right.
accountable.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think and notes in n- yeah, like a few things jotted down in a note is enough. Like, or
Yeah.
it could be
Yeah.
enough. Like,
Yeah.
but when you don't have anything, um, a- as in what I'm doing at the moment, it doesn't work.
That's
It's
how I
like,
used
oh
to
yeah,
be.
well.
That's how I used to be. Like
Yeah,
I
and
had
I'll go through.
I
Yeah,
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 I had no schedule, no set like routine or anything, and I just kind of wing it. And
yeah,
then I would half wing
Yeah.
it. I wouldn't get it done. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So you reap what you sow. I'm reaping what I sow. You're reaping what you've sown. So that's why I've got you on here, Ange, because, like I know you do, you don't just tell people to do things,
hmm
you do them as well. And so,
hmm Yeah. It
okay.
was a
So you've
journey
been
though.
to the gym.
hmm
Yeah.
So
Oh,
usually I
I know
get,
it is. And I think, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it is. And and the other thing too is like, okay, so you say you don't get a workout in. It's not the end of the world. Like, don't beat yourself up. And I had to really get over that too,
Mm,
especially when, kind of in the beginning, when I was trying to get back into, working out and things like that, during my thyroid healing process. And when things weren't still the best, I had to listen to my body. And there were many days where I'm like, today's not a workout day. I can't do it. I'm just going to go for a walk, or I'm just going to stretch. So you still have to listen to your body and still be in tune with that. And that was the one thing I had to
yeah.
learn was like, okay, today I actually need to listen to my body today. I'm not being lazy. I physically should not work out today because I'm too tired.
Hmm.
I don't have it in me. I feel exhausted. That is not counterintuitive. You're not going to get anything from the workout. It's just going to make things worse. So you still have to
Yeah.
listen to your body and be mindful of
Mm.
that. And that took me a while to kind of like start, realizing that, you still have to do that.
Yeah.
So, mhm.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because, you think there's a lot of people listening that, I mean, you've been doing that for a long time.
Mhm.
You've always, from what I remember from your story, always been a fit, active
Mhm.
person. Not everyone's starting from that base. And so,
No.
don't think if you're listening to this, you've got to go do what
You
Ange
got to
has
do
just
5 days,
said that
right?
she
And
does.
honestly, and
Yeah,
I'm glad you brought that up
yeah.
because when I first, so I will not deny this either. Every doctor that I went to, and after I was diagnosed 22, by 24, 25, every doctor was telling me you need to exercise more. So I was exercising 7 days a week, twice a day, because every doctor told me I had to work
Wow.
out twice a day and 7 days a week. And I was miserable and packing weight on and feeling worse. So I had to
Mm,
stop it all together. By like late 20s, stopped altogether. No workouts at all, literally nothing, except I
yeah,
started going for walks and that
yeah.
was it. When I actually started going to the gym again and doing more strength training and things like that, I was lucky if I was going 2 days a week. I mean, I had to go
Hmm.
very slow, and it was like maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes of a workout, 2 days a week, and I had to work my way up. So it took me years to get to where I'm at now. So it doesn't happen overnight, and that's why I'm reiterating that you don't have to do it all, and you don't have to do it every single day or do something, but work your way up with things. And it took me many years to work my way up to what I'm into, what I'm doing now, and feeling okay with it and
Hmm.
feeling like I can recover from it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. That's
hmm
really helpful. So that's a good, potentially a goal for people who are
Yeah.
listening. Probably a goal for me, but you may or may not get to where Ange is, and this is not about that. This is
And it's
about,
not about that, right?
what's the
Exactly.
routine. It's not about that. It's not we're
hmm
trying to replicate all of what you do. It's trying to understand. Here's someone who's been at it for a long time, who's been
hmm
diligent, and this is what you do, and you know it's a good example, but
Yeah.
everybody is unique and different.
Very
And
different.
if I
Yeah.
think, yeah, and there's seasons. Like if I look at my situation, like I'm in a season,
hmm
and I mean, I will get back into having
Yeah.
more of a routine and I'll figure
Yeah.
myself out. And, we've had a full on nearly 12 months really in our household with Lee's factory fire, like
Oh, yeah.
it's just been a lot,
Craziness. Yeah.
it's just been crazy, and it's not always like that. It won't always, I mean, that craziness has settled down. I think I'm in the routine of working 3 days a week,
Yeah.
like every season has its different,
It's very different.
I don't know, swing. Yeah. So
And even like
it's
here, so like
okay.
it's
Like
summer
I'm not,
here.
yeah.
It's summer here now, but like winter months, I mean, we get brutal winters, very, very cold. So I'm
Mm,
not doing walks very much. We're not doing
hmm.
walks,
Right.
like that. And sometimes there are days where I'm like, I don't even feel like getting out of my house because it's so cold here today. So we're just going to do a little mini
Hmm.
workout in the basement. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's different for different times of the years, even for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
hmm
It's just the point is that there is movement, like, and I think something that I've learned from you and from Emily and plenty of other
hmm
guests is it is important to be doing some and kind
Movement.
of resistance training.
Yeah.
That strength,
Yeah.
movement and resistance training are the two really key things.
Yeah.
And for women in
Especially,
particular, like I'm turning
yeah.
50 next
Hmm.
week. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, I really have to, I understand that sort of in my, midlife, perimenopausal, menopausal years, like really important to be doing strength,
Yeah, some type of
resistance
strength or
training.
resistance training. I always emphasize that too, especially for women as we're aging, but definitely if you have thyroid disease, it's huge because it's easier to lose muscle mass and muscle tone and things like that. And as you're aging, you need
Hmm.
all the muscle strength, all that you can get. And it's going to be hard to get that when we're not doing some
Yeah.
type of resistance training. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you've been to the gym, you've come home
Mhm.
now. Where are we up to in your day? You've been for
Usually
a
yeah.
wind down walk. What happens next?
Yeah, walk's done. Then I'm usually having my breakfast. I generally, I mean, I talk about this all the time, even on Instagram too. That I'm pretty adamant about like perimeter of the grocery store is like your best friend. So we're thinking, protein, starches, and fruits and vegetables and things like that. So I'm usually having some type of protein and starch or something like that for my breakfast. Um, and then generally, I might do if again, it depends on if I have immediate calls with clients right away. If I have a little bit of time to kill before I start client calls, sometimes I might do some more self care. I might do a little bit more, meditation or tapping or something like that, depending
Hmm.
on what I have time for. Maybe some journaling or some reading. And then I'm going into client calls, and client calls are kind of sporadic throughout the day, depending on, how I want to schedule it. And again, it depends on the season, you know, with
Yeah. Yeah.
winter months, I usually will, but more back to back calls kind of together. Summer months, not as much because I'm getting outside more. I'm going with my dog more, stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But I
Okay.
usually am
Yep.
getting, more calls scheduled in. Always make sure I have my lunch. I don't skip meals. I used to do that all the time. I do not do that anymore. So I'm usually
Hmm.
getting in, lunch, usually same type of thing. I mean, it's, protein, vegetables, maybe some fruit, healthy fats, things like
Yeah.
that. And then afternoon, I'm usually making sure, after lunch, I'm usually making sure that I do have, take a little break. I don't do the best with working like straight like hours and hours and hours without taking like I gotta have like a little break, like a little brain break.
Hmm.
So I'm
Hmm.
usually doing again either some type of self-care. Maybe it is I'm going for another little mini walk or just getting outside with my dog. Or I might do some, journaling or some reading or something like that. Um, so I'm usually doing that. I'm lucky I have a sauna and I have a cold plunge in my house, in my basement. So
Hmm.
usually I'm doing one or the other, maybe both.
Yep.
At some point
Yep.
in the afternoon, I'm usually doing something like that.
Okay.
And then waiting for the hubby to come home, and we usually have dinner. Um, and again, same thing. It's usually just I keep things pretty simple.
I'm going to come back to the food. I'm going to come back
Okay,
and
we'll
get some
go
more
over that.
specifics on the food. But let
Yeah.
me talk. You'll talk through your day, and then we'll come back to
Yeah.
the food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's wind down time. So it's usually like, my husband and I will
Hmm.
usually watch some TV or whatever, um, just chill out a little bit. And then my phone, usually it's on do not disturb by like 7:30 ish. Do not
Mm,
disturb.
yeah.
Not looking at it. If I do need to look at it, I'm using blue light blocking glasses usually. And then by the time
Hmm.
I'm going to bed, I'm doing a little bit of journaling. I'm usually writing a gratitude list almost every single night. What am I grateful for today? What was a win for me today? I'm doing something positive when I go to bed. And then
Hmm.
if I feel like I have too much energy or, any anxiety or whatever, if it was a crazy day, then I'm probably going to do some tapping or something like that to kind of wind me down too. And again, some
Hmm.
journaling.
Yeah.
And that's it. Lights out. I mean, that's pretty much, it's a basic day.
Yeah,
I
that's
try to just,
okay. I mean, and
yeah.
we all live fairly basic lives in the
Mhm.
end, so it's
Mhm.
that. But it is that normal. Every there's all variations and all of that, but
Yeah.
that's great. That's a normal day. And so, what time is bed, and what time is waking up
Usually
for you?
up 5-ish, I'm not
Okay.
because I go to bed so early, so I can't it's hard for me to sleep in. really, really
Yeah.
late.
Okay.
On the weekends, easier, because we'll stay up later, but usually because my husband has to get up so early. So, we're usually in bed by asleep by 8. It's
Oh
usually
gosh, oh,
like that.
that is
Yeah.
early.
Yeah. It's early. And only because,
Right.
he gets
Okay.
up
So that's
so,
early.
so early. And I'm like, I'm going to be wide awake here.
Does he?
So,
Okay.
yeah. So I just go to bed early. So that's why
Okay.
it's pretty easy for me to get up at 5. But on the weekends,
Yeah. So you're
that
getting a
usually,
good night's sleep. Yeah.
hmm
That's, yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah, I always make sure I'm trying to get at least 7 hours of solid sleep. 8 hours is
Okay.
phenomenal. Because
Yeah.
sleep used to be very, very broken. Like I have an Aura ring and I could
Mm-hmm.
tell from my Aura ring, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like it would be like awake, asleep, awake, asleep. And it was just this broken sleep and I never felt rested.
Mm.
So now I know that I can get a
Mm.
pretty solid amount of sleep. If I can get a
Mm.
good solid straight through of 7 hours, I'm really happy. And then 8 hours is just a bonus. But, and some
And
people
so
need to
what
have
have you
more than
done
that.
to improve that sleep? Yeah. So what have you done to improve that sleep? Like has the Aura
Um,
ring been part of that, or
Aura,
like
Aura ring
what
has
have
been part
you
of it.
done?
Yeah. Because I started noticing that,
Mm-hmm.
my sleep was like broken and you could see on my Aura ring that I was too wound up like at bedtime. They show
Mm.
they call it a latency. So it will show you like from the time you hit the bed and you're laying down to the time you fall asleep, it was like hours before I would fall asleep. And I'm like, what am I doing here?
Mm-hmm.
That I'm not, and I was
Mm.
on my phone. I was like on my phone scrolling
Uh-huh.
and I wasn't using blue light blocking glasses. That didn't
Mm-hmm.
help at all. And I
Mm-hmm.
was having, at that time, I'm not anymore. But I was having caffeine like too late in the day. I don't even have caffeine at all anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I do better without it. So things like that, even foods. I would sometimes like have too big of a meal at dinner time, and that
Mm.
can make a big difference just for me personally. So I had to start,
Mm.
really start noticing that. Even like uh, if I would be on my phone, I'd be looking at videos or whatever, reading things that I'm like, this is like making me wired. It's like revving me and I'm releasing cortisol. Like that's not helping me. So it
Yeah.
was, stuff like that I had to really kind of monitor and do more calming, like chill out type of activities, things like that, so that I wasn't raising my cortisol up and that melatonin was actually still getting
Mm.
released and things like that. Yeah. And that meant a
Yeah.
huge game changer for me.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, getting a good night's sleep is so critically important, and that's something that we do overlook, isn't it?
All the
So
time.
often, and
Yeah.
it's well, yeah. It's not just then after you get from when you get to bed. It's like, well, what
Yeah.
have you done in the lead up before?
And
What have
then,
you eaten? What have you drunk?
right.
What have you thought about?
Right.
I found like because one of my days that I work Thursday, as Thursday morning
Mhm.
here. I don't start till 12 o'clock, but I work 12 till 8, and I work with separated families in a mediation context, so it's like
Mhm.
it's intense kind of work. And I've
Right.
noticed that Thursday night, by the time I get home, is 8:30, and then it's like I'm not falling asleep till later
Right.
because
Right.
I'm just a bit more wound up. I
Right.
really have to then go and watch some TV just to
Yeah.
try to switch my brain off, and I read, and just that one night I do end up.
Yeah.
It, it just takes me longer because from what you just said, like
Winding
I'm
down.
more
Yeah.
wound up.
Yeah.
I'm just
You're just
winding
wound
down.
up. Yeah.
Whereas every other night it's a bit different, and
Yeah.
and I'm mindful because I've had lots of issues with sleep over
Yeah.
time too, of just that winding down. But I've also got to say, well, it's one night a week, and I get
Yeah.
Thursday mornings free, so I can do things like this. So it's
Right.
okay, but it's just definitely aware that that winding
Yeah.
down
But it's
is
cool that you notice that like you're
harder.
like, I got to do things to like chill myself out and calm down a little bit for this evening because I am so wound up from it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've just got to accept that my night routine is later on that
Hmm.
night.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
like
And
I'll
that
watch a bit
happens
of
to me.
TV
Sometimes
later,
that.
I'll have a
Hmm.
shower later. It's just, and it's okay. I don't try to if I look at the clock and it's a bit too late, and then I start to get stressed. What if I don't sleep? What if it's like it's
Right.
okay. This is just I'm going to it's going to be later
Exactly.
tonight. It just is what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
That's
It is
okay.
what it is.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Because it's not like you're doing that every single night. It's just one night. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So, and so let's come back to food, because,
Yeah.
you know, I know you love your food. I love my food.
Hmm.
Hopefully, if you're listening, you love your food as well.
Yeah.
And I think when you get to this point where you know, we're not so much going to talk about what we're not eating, because we've done that
Hmm.
on plenty of other episodes. But once you get your head around all the things that you can eat and do eat and love to eat and cook them well, we can all love our food. So, and I know you
Hmm.
do love your food.
Hmm.
So talk us through, like, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Yeah.
Yeah, what? Yeah.
So breakfast, I have to remember what I had for breakfast. Okay, so I had chicken thigh. So I don't eat a
Hmm.
typical I eat a lot of like things that
Yeah.
I
So this
normally eat
is
for
good.
like lunch and dinner. I usually eat for breakfast too. So some days,
Yep.
yeah, it might be like eggs and a protein smoothie or things like that. I do that still too. But this morning happened to be I did chicken thigh that was left over that I had made yesterday. And then
Hmm.
some roasted sweet potatoes. That was my breakfast this morning. And I had it was cooked in like coconut oil. So I had some healthy fats, I had protein, and I had a starch. So that was my breakfast this
Yeah.
morning. Um,
And
typically,
do you try to get a certain amount of protein? Like,
mhm,
have you got? Do you
yeah.
try to do
So I
that?
usually try to get at least 30 grams of protein for like my big meal. So like breakfast, lunch, dinner is usually going to be at least 30 grams of protein because then I know,
Hmm.
I usually have at least one snack. Usually afternoon, like between like lunch and dinner. With that
Hmm.
snack, I'm getting in, maybe another 20 grams of protein. So I know I'll hit over 100 grams of protein. If I can get over 100,
Hmm.
anywhere from 100, 125 grams of protein is really good for me. So
Hmm.
that's kind of where, again, I've just found my sweet spot with it. And I
Yeah.
do, my little, that cocktail that I mentioned, that I do in the mornings that has collagen in it. So that's a little bit of protein too.
Uh huh.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
my big meals, it's anywhere from 30 to 35 grams of protein is ideal, for like
Hmm.
chicken thigh, I'll make sure I'm
Yeah.
getting, a good 30 to 35 grams. That usually ends up being about like 5.5 ounces, of protein if you're measuring it,
Yeah.
of protein. So that was my breakfast this morning. I generally don't do a mid morning snack just because, I'm usually that's when I'm usually like doing client calls and I'm busy and stuff like that. So I'm usually not really
Yeah.
thinking about food.
Yeah.
Afternoons I usually am, but mornings I'm usually not. So then I usually have my lunch,
Yeah.
maybe
Hmm.
4 hours later or something. That's one thing I also had to really work on was that I was notorious for skipping meals, or waiting
Hmm.
way too long to eat. And then I was ravenous and I would just, grab anything and my blood sugar was all dysregulated and it wasn't a good situation. So I had to really be
Yeah.
mindful of, not skipping meals. Even if I wasn't hungry, I'm like, just get into routine, eat something, so
Yeah.
that I wasn't going too long before my next meal. And that helped me a lot
Hmm.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so lunch and dinner are similar. Like, I mean,
Pretty similar.
similar types of, like you said, yeah.
Ye-
I mean, I'm like that. Protein, but protein,
Mhm.
veggies, protein,
Yeah,
like, fat,
usually
such,
usually my
yeah.
lunch, is a lot of vegetables. Sometimes I'll do a starch
Hmm.
or a fruit, something like that, but it's usually a lot of vegetables. I'm usually doing a lot
Hmm.
of veggies and protein
Hmm.
at lunch. And then dinner, I'm typically
Hmm.
doing, again, some type of starch or, um, maybe some fruit, in my protein. Like tonight, before I came on here, my husband grilled some pork tenderloin and, he cut some of that up and we had it on like this, just made this big, I've been craving salads lately. The lettuce is so good here right now during the summer. So we had a big salad with a ton of fruit on it. And then the pork, grilled pork tenderloin, delicious, by the way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
That sounds lovely.
put,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, usually use like Primal Kitchen salad dressing, something like that. So I put that on there and that was it. Yeah. I mean, I like to use, I say fancier, but like recipes and things like that.
Hmm.
But it's so easy for me just to keep, it very simple with like protein, vegetables, some type of carbs, source or whatever, and healthy fat. So I'm
Yeah.
usually doing that more often than anything, just because it's just easier, for me
Yeah.
to do it that way. Yeah. And then I have
Yeah.
leftovers. I usually have leftovers then, and it's easier to meal prep then too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then, like you said, you cooked these chicken thighs yesterday. You have them for breakfast
Hmm.
today.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that's fairly common in our household too.
Hmm.
Definitely the same approach to food,
Yeah.
with the, you know, protein,
Mm-hmm.
what's the protein? What's the fat? What's
Right.
some salad or some starch. I do better. I have learned in the last year I do better without too much starch. I really
Yeah.
my body
I can, I
functions
can over, I can, yeah,
fairly low carb. I love
yeah,
carbs,
yeah.
but my body definitely
Yeah,
responds
I
better
can
with very
overkill it, so
minimal
I can't.
carbs.
I have to do the exact same thing. Like I could easily overdo it, and I feel it. I'm like, ooh, that's a little much. So I have to be a little mindful with how much I'm having of that. I do respond a little bit
Mm.
better with fruit than I do with starch. If I do overkill
Oh,
a
that's
carb
interesting.
source.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's a
Yeah.
little bit different, and you can find your kind of sweet spot with it too, which has been really nice.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
usually loading up if I'm loading up on anything. I love vegetables. I eat a lot of vegetables, so yeah, I like that. And then always having protein.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't
Yep.
have to be complicated.
No.
That's what I often say. And
No.
when I run my kind of 30-day programs, which is focused on removing all of the the
Hmm.
typically inflammatory foods,
Inflammatory foods.
it's like, well, let's just focus, on keeping it really simple. Like,
Very
let's keep
simple.
it super
Hmm.
simple.
Yep.
It doesn't have to. That doesn't mean bad or doesn't have
Yeah.
flavor or boring or looks terrible. Like, it's just
I think
what
that's a
you
lot of
meet.
people think too. I think a lot of people think that if we're
Mm.
keeping it very simple, your food's just going to taste like dirt and it's bland. And I'm like, I love
Hmm.
my meals. I absolutely love my
Yeah.
meals. They taste delicious. I
Yeah.
have, I use seasonings and things like that. I'm like, they taste amazing and it's very simple. And you do
Yeah.
not, I mean, yes, you can use, like I said, fancy recipes, but you do not have to do that. It can be very, very simple and your food can be outstanding still.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean,
Yeah.
we were out last night, but I'd cooked up a slow roasted chuck
Yeah.
roast.
Yeah.
And it's winter here, and obviously we don't have winters like you do. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful, I don't know if you can see out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
actually looks a bit grey out the window, but it's a beautiful blue sky day. We have beautiful winters, and it's really not that cold, but it's still winter for us. And so, like, I've been doing quite a lot of
Mm-hmm.
slow cooked lamb. This was slow cooked beef.
Yeah.
Um, it's super easy. I mean, often I just had it with a handful of salad greens, and then I think my
That's,
Lee had some rice.
that
I mean,
sounds
I do
yummy.
cook a lot of starches. I've got 4
Mm.
teenage young adult men in the house,
Uh-huh.
so we used to have leftovers. Now there's like no leftovers. Like,
No
where is the food? I've
leftovers.
just spent
Right.
$500 and there's no, like,
Right.
literally the fridge is empty.
Yeah. I
So
just bought all
um,
this.
theoretically we do the whole leftover thing too, but I'm just not
Hmm.
finding there's much leftovers
Yeah.
anymore. But yeah, the slow cooked meat. And then, I
Yep.
think, yeah, like, sure, the other night Lee cooked on Sunday night. He cooks Sunday nights, and he's
Hmm.
doing this thing at the moment where he's choosing, like, online you can do like a wheel spinner thing and
Yeah.
choosing a different country. Like, you could, like, a country
Oh,
spinner.
that's
And so
kind
he
of
spins.
cool.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
he's like, right, well, I've cooked something from, whatever country it lands
Yeah.
on. And so last Sunday night it was Singapore. And so he looked
Oh,
up what was a
a
common,
popular meal.
a
Yeah.
popular meal in Singapore, which was Hainanese chicken, which was basically poached chicken. So that was like easy with some yummy like ginger and garlic and chili, like all these nice sauces, and this flavored rice like that was cooked in chicken stock and ginger
Sounds delish.
and I was like, okay, rice doesn't really do good things for me,
Hmm.
but I'm like, this rice is really good. So
Hmm.
there was no vegetables. Often when Lee cooks, there's like, oh, could we have some vegetables? No, I didn't cook
Yeah,
vegetables,
my husband's
but
not
it
a
was like
vegetable fan,
chicken
so if
and
yeah.
rice, and I ate a
Uh-huh.
fair bit of that rice on Sunday. But often I will just take a handful of spinach leaves,
Hmm.
instead of the rice.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be complicated. Literally
No, it
last
can
night with
be.
my slow cooked beef, I'm like grabbing a handful of salad leaves out of the bag and shoving it in the bowl with the meat on top, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that was it.
That's
So
how, like, my salad that I made tonight. That's literally what it was. It was a bunch of greens, threw the port tenderloin on. I added a little bit of fruit to it just because fruit's really good in season right now here.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
called it a day. Like, it was just simple. I feel like the simpler, the easier it is to kind of stick to things too, instead of making like
yeah,
overly complicated recipes. Like, yeah, I love cooking, but I found out for me that it was like, it's easier for me if I just have just basic, but then, flavor it up, put seasonings on, whatever you want to. So,
Yeah. 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 Well, I love that. I love that. And
hmm
look, I think you've walked us through a day. You've given
hmm
us a good example of, a typical, typical day, a typical week.
hmm
Entirely doable, and build up toable. Like, you don't have to
yeah,
do everything all at once. Both
nope.
Ange and I have both taken decades to get to the point that we,
Uh-huh.
are. I mean, I think about other lifestyle factors. For me, it took me years to change my water filter, actually put in a water filter in the house. Like, it took
Yeah.
years to switch out all the plastic Tupperware containers and switch them
Containers,
to
right.
glass, that, to switch out all the,
Like beauty care products and things like that. Yeah. What
all
did
of
not
that.
happen
Like,
overnight.
I mean, and
Right.
that's something, I mean, that's a whole different part of the lifestyle, but that took
Right.
years to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything, it just takes time. So be
hmm
gentle with yourself if you're listening. Be
Absolutely
inspired,
agree.
but be gentle and just
hmm
figure out what works for you.
Right.
And I think the other thing I loved, Ange, that something that I'm not very good at, is, or that it was struck me, I thought, yeah, I've probably got to get better at that. There's probably a better way of putting it, is not having the phone top and tail of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
used to
so,
be so bad with that. And I'm
yeah.
like, okay, I need to chill out on that. Like it's going to still be there. Like I can still get to it.
Mm,
I
yeah.
just don't need to prioritize immediately going to my phone. Like when I wake up in the morning,
Mm,
give myself, plus also think about it. Like you go to your phone immediately in the morning, it's fake light. And you're better off to wake yourself up with more, I say natural light than having
yeah.
a phone in your face immediately. So that's
Mm,
why I really try to be mindful of that. It took a lot. I'm not
mm,
going to lie. It took
yeah.
a lot. Even in the
Yeah.
evenings, it took a lot to break that habit.
Mm,
But it does make a
mm,
big difference. It makes a really big difference. Plus, a lot of times I
yeah.
go on my phone in the morning and it was something that I'm like, I don't really want to read about this. This isn't even good news. And I just
Mm,
started my day off with
mm,
this.
yeah.
So it's do something positive for yourself, even if it's and have talked about this with you before, positive affirmations. I will I
Yes.
have a whole list of positive affirmations that I want to read to
Yeah.
myself every single
Hmm.
day. I do that right away in the morning too, and make sure I'm always repeating that. And I might do it a couple times in the day too, but the morning, I always start my day
Mm,
off with that as well. And that also is
mm,
anything to ingrain in your brain, okay, it's going to be a good day, even if you feel like dirt.
mm,
Do something positive, say something positive about yourself, even if you don't feel it, because your body hears everything. It literally
yeah.
hears everything, and it will keep score. So it's really important to do that.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, just that positive. Something I've been doing recently is I've got a book of blessings, and
Oh, I love
I'm really
that.
just speaking them
hmm
over one of my children at the moment, not because the others don't need it, but I'm just focusing on one. But it's, I mean, you kind of get the blessing when, and it's just speaking these
Yeah,
beautiful blessings, and I'm just speaking these blessings, and
I love that.
similar. It's like let's just speak love, let's speak life and hope, and
Right,
over ourselves and our family and
right.
our friends, and
Yeah.
yeah. But I like the way that you have intertwined all of that into your
hmm
lifestyle. So, is there anything you think when we're talking about, you know, living a thyroid-friendly lifestyle, being, fueled up well with our food and our exercise and our mindset? Is there anything we haven't just you haven't mentioned that you think would be
I
helpful for
think
the audience
one
in this
other really
context?
important thing that I kind of always think about, because a lot of people think oh, I'm not stressed out. I don't have stress in my life because you hear about how it's so important to manage stress, so important to manage stress. When we have thyroid issues, especially as women, it really is important to manage stress. But think
Mhm.
about stress does not have to be I don't like my boss, or I'm sitting in traffic and I'm stressed out. It can literally be physical, mental, emotional. It could be internal. It could be
Mhm.
external type of stress. So you have to
Mhm.
find the stress relief thing that's going to work for you. And
Mhm.
one thing I found out for me, that's why I love tapping. Tapping, I really get a lot out
Oh,
of
yeah.
tapping. But I've had clients say
Mm.
to me, they're like, please don't make me meditate. I don't like meditation. I get nothing out of it. I'm like, then it's not your thing. So when we're thinking
Yeah, find
about,
your thing. Yeah.
managing stress, it has to be something that you feel like you can get something out of. So it might be
Mhm.
listening to music, going for a walk, reading a book,
Mhm.
taking a 5-minute break to literally have no noise and just have time to yourself. Whatever that looks
Mm.
like, but it's got to be something that you feel like you can get something out of and it works for you.
Yeah.
But also always think about there are although other stressors other than like, stressed about job or family life or whatever that looks like,
Mm.
there's a lot of other stress we can have in our body, even like, and that's why you mentioned like, swapping out like our, plastic dishes to glass containers, our beauty care
Mm.
products. Those can all be stressors on the body over time when, we build up toxins and things like that. So managing stress is super important, but it can look different ways for different people. And that's why
Mhm.
I'm always like, do things for you that you feel like you get something out of. And that's why I've created my own routine where I'm like, I get something out of this. There are certain things that I'm like, yeah, I don't really get as much out of that like I would like to. So that doesn't work for me to
Mm.
help me keep my cortisol in check and help me manage my stress. So always kind of keep that in mind too. Maybe you like
Yeah.
journaling. If you hate journaling, you're like, I get
Mm.
nothing out of it, then it's not your thing. It's not going to help you.
Yeah.
Don't do it because you read the latest article saying everyone should be doing meditation or everyone should be doing
Yeah.
journaling. There's suggestions. And that's why I always give suggestions and give you
Mm.
ideas to find what is going to work for you then.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And how can people connect with you, work
Yeah.
with you? Tell us a bit about
S-
that, and then we'll
s-
got to get back on with our. Well, you're
yeah.
at the end of your day. I've got to go
I'm at the
take
end of
the
my
dog
day or
to
at the
the
beginning of your
vet.
day. Yeah.
So we can,
Um,
we'll do our different routines.
right.
So
Right.
tell us,
Exactly.
yeah, how can
So
people connect with you?
and I mention I'm on Instagram. So Angela Brown Coach is my Instagram handle. I'm also on Facebook as Angela Brown Thyroid Coach, but I'm usually more active on Instagram. So Angela Brown Coach.
Hmm.
My website is angelabrown.org. And I have a blog and lots of resources on there, a bunch of free resources and free guides and things like that. And then you can see my services on there and stuff like that I offer as well. And yeah, that's a lot of good info on there.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I know you share a lot of really helpful tips and,
Mhm.
a lot of your own life on Instagram. I enjoy keeping up with you there
Yeah.
as well. So thank you.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you
it's
for
been
having me. Always fun
always
chatting with
enjoy
you.
talking to you. Yeah, well, we'll
Yeah.
have to do another
Yeah.
one down the track too. So
Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
yeah, thanks. And so, look, if you're still listening at the end, one of the things I like to do just to wrap up is just get you to think about what is one thing that you're going to take away from this conversation. And we've talked about lots of different things,
Mhm.
but if you think, oh, I'm going to do lots of things, you probably do nothing. So just think about one thing that you can
Mhm.
do or take away or research or start implementing as a result of this conversation. And then it's not just information, then it actually is action, and then it can
Mhm.
actually impact your life and start you on
Yep.
your own thyroid-friendly lifestyle journey or take you
Yeah.
to up to that next little notch. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yep.
think of that one thing. Well, thanks, Ange. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
And I'll
you.
see you next time on the podcast.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Let's Talk Thyroid. If you have enjoyed the content, or perhaps you're thinking, oh, my mum needs to hear this, or my sister, or my bestie, I would love it if you would share this episode with them. That really just helps spread the positive and practical message of Let's Talk Thyroid and helps that broader thyroid community, our friends and family, to live well with their thyroid health. So you can just, share the episode. If you subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast, it's free. It's really helpful because then you'll be notified every time a new podcast comes out, and it just makes it much easier to find. There's usually a little subscribe button or a bell or follow often is the terminology. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be helpful. Of course, if you want to leave a review, even better, just a sentence or two about how the podcast has helped you. You can definitely connect with me via letstalkthyroid.com. That's where you'll find access to my book, my coaching, my freebies, and really everything that I offer in terms of thyroid support.